Like
Yep.
I was going to study the Bible better than anybody else. I was going to teach Sunday school. I had the gift of prophecy. I was going to go street preach. I was going to do all these things.
Welcome to Witch Talks, the series for spiritual seekers, witches, and enlightened souls. I'm Hana the Suburban Witch, professional tarot reader, astrologer, and witch, and I hope you're ready to get up close and personal with your favourite witches. Hello, thank you for joining me today. I'm so happy to have you here with me. We have a wonderful episode planned for you. There is a small trigger warning as we are going to be discussing the Christian to witch pipeline, which means we're going to be talking about Christian stuff. So those of you with religious trauma that is raw, take it easy. As with any of these episodes, please take care of yourself. We don't want you re-traumatizing yourself. There is also some discussions around suicide and loss, so keep that in mind as well. Today's guest is Matt Stine, and Matt is actually one of my long-term society group members in the Suburban Witches Society. Matt is also one of my mentorship clients, and I think has taken every single class that I have put out there. I adore Matt. I adore the contributions that they make to the society and to all of my spaces. They have such an amazing energy and they're so open with sharing about their journey as well. I've been a guest on both of Matt's podcasts, which you'll hear about, so definitely check them out as well. One podcast, Contemplating Resonance, deals a lot with deconstruction themes and the such, and such like this, and such is life. Oh gosh, Ned Kelly. Ned Kelly? No. Who says such is life? Yes, it was Ned Kelly. Look at me, Australian history nerd. Here we go. Apparently it was the last known words that he said as the noose was hung around his neck. Bringing it back to the topic at hand, Matt has another podcast called Two Fools Walk Into the Tower, and that is with one of my other mentee clients and group members, Brandy. Gosh, guys, I feel like I'm multiplying the witches out there and the podcast for you all to listen to. And I've been on their podcast as well, so definitely check that one out. It is really, really good. And what an awesome name. Two Fools Walk into the podcast. Oh my God, guys. Two Fools Walk Into the Tower. Like, fantastic. Absolutely love it. So without further ado, we're going to get chatting. Now, Matt and I can talk forever. We are both chatty McChatty pants. And so the behind the scenes version, the uncut version, available to society members is like 2.5 hours long. And I've cut this down for the general public, and because if you have super, super long episodes, apparently it messes with your analytics and we don't want that. But if you're enjoying it and if you want more of what we were talking about, definitely come and join us in the society. You'll get to chat with Matt and Brandy and myself and all of the other amazing people in there. It is such a fun group. Like, I am not just saying that. My cat River just walked in, meowed at me. I lost my train of thought and now she's sitting on the crunchiest, noisiest piece of paper possible on the floor. Wonderful. Cat mum life. I think I was talking about the society. The society is amazing. We have a great time. You get uncut episodes of all of the podcast interview episodes, which are well worth it. There is so much behind the scenes stuff that we talk about that I have to cut out for time reasons. You're missing out, guys. We have a thriving group chat. Like, this thing just pops off. It is the most active chat I've ever been a part of. And you get resources from me every single month, sometimes more than one. So if you're developing your astrology, your witchy skills, your tarot skills, any of that, it's all in there. It is $30 for the month, but if you listen to the season 2 finale episode, there is a discount code and you can get it for only $10. $10? That's like, I don't know, a fancy coffee from Starbucks. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode and chat about all things along the Christian, particularly evangelical, to witch pipeline. In this episode, I'm chatting with Matt Stine, also known as Falcon's Mage. Matt is helping clients find their unique soul purpose through the use of Jungian psychology, contemplative spirituality, tarot and oracle cards, and also natal astrology. Matt writes about their journey of faith deconstruction and explores the metaphysical concept of resonance through their newsletter. And they also host and co-host multiple podcasts, including the Contemplating Resonance podcast, where they interview guests about their deconstruction stories, and another one, which is Two Fools Walk Into the Tower, a podcast about, you guessed it, the tarot. both of which I've also been a guest on. So make sure to head over and have a listen. Matt is also a valued member of the Suburban Witches Society and was the first person to sign up for my mentorship offering. So Matt and I know each other pretty well. I'm so looking forward to sharing Matt's work and wisdom with you today. So let's get into it. Matt is joining us via Zoom all the way from Mississippi in the United States. Hey, Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, I sound really busy.
You sound very busy.
I heard I wrote most of those words at some point, and you kind of stitched them together into this, this dossier, and I'm like, good Lord, I do a lot of stuff.
Well, look, even just having
So,
two podcasts is a lot of work.
yeah, well, I figured out, I guess the one that I recorded last night was the 14th podcast I've recorded this year,
Mm-hmm.
just of my podcasts. So this will be 15 of being on either end, right?
All right, can we pull an oracle card to like set the tone for today?
Sure. Sure.
Okay, I'm going
I
to
like to pull
use.
cards on podcasts.
Yeah, I know you do. So, what I'm using at the moment, for those who are listening in, I am developing an oracle deck. At the moment, it is in query stage, which means I have sent it to publishers and I'm waiting to hear back. This is currently my little working model is an old, I think it's 2022, an old 2022 planner that I had left over that I chopped up and wrote
All
words
right, I
on.
remember that now.
So the back of the cards, like it just looks like, this one says month, February, Monday, 31st. Like the
I
back of the
mean,
card's
it's really good paper.
it's great paper. It's thick and it just worked well for me to play with something and
Yeah.
put it to the test, if that makes sense. So there's no pictures on it. It's just words. But obviously I have the meanings in my brain and in my Notion document. So we're going to pull a little card and see what it says for you today, Matt. Oh, and I didn't even tell what the theme of the deck is. I was like, I just have this deck. This is my ex-vangelical oracle deck, and we're going to be chatting a lot about ex-vangelical stuff today. So it felt very on theme to give you guys a little sneak peek into what I've been creating behind the scenes. And if anyone's curious, I do talk a little bit more about this. I have a private blog post only available for Suburban Witches Society members, and that talks a bit about what I'm thinking about with this deck, what the idea is, images of what I would think it would look like, that sort of a thing. So you
I
guys,
have read that secret blog post.
yes.
You want to read it, you should join.
All righty. So let me tell you what we have here. Now, I've pulled a card from this for you before, haven't I, on one of the group calls?
Yeah, it's been a minute, but you definitely have.
Yes. All right. So it's called Moving Churches. I was going to hold it up, but there's nothing to see. It literally just says Moving Churches on it.
I can't wait
Now,
to hear this.
the vibe with this one is, and I've got some like keywords. Keywords are hidden, secret, running away, disguise, escape. Think of it like the Six of Swords meets the Moon card. That's the vibe.
Mm.
Now, what the guidebook would say for this one is, gosh, I haven't seen the Smith family in weeks. I hope they're okay. Didn't you hear? They moved churches. Oh, oh, indeed. The only reason people move churches without telling anyone is to cover up something they did wrong. Perhaps to cover up the fact that they were kicked out and asked to leave for doing something that goes against the church. Or there is a scandal they need to hide out from. What is it you're hiding from? What's being swept under the rug in your life? This card comes up to remind you that you can't outrun your problems. Ghosting people or pushing things down will eventually come back to bite you in the ass. It's better to own up to it and face the music now. Advice here is to sit put, stay still, don't run, don't move, don't hide. Rip off the band-aid and address the issue head on. Come clean and let the people around you know what's going on. So with this card, it's kind of the vibe of sometimes we might get this like, am I doing the wrong thing? Do I need to like that sort of, oh, maybe this is too much. Maybe I need to run and hide. Maybe this is too far gone. Maybe I should change my focus. Maybe I should. And it's kind of like this, something feels uncomfortable and we're trying to get away from it. And the advice is really to sit in that and to definitely tell someone about it. Be like, hey, This is what I'm thinking. This is where my brain's at the moment. This is maybe why this feels a little bit scary. How does that sound?
Well, what's interesting about it is that having lived through a moving church's story myself, you captured the vibe perfectly.
Yes. Because if you
And to
haven't
be
lived through
honest,
it, you wouldn't know. You'd be like, oh, they moved churches, cool. But no, it's not just that.
we didn't even really move for like one of those juicy reasons. Like it was more of like a, well, we moved houses to a different side of the city to where it was like, okay, we're driving past 40 churches 45 minutes to get to the church. We
Mm.
love it, but we have four small children when at the time there were only two, but still we had a lot of small. It's hard, but that doesn't mean that the yapping and murmuring and whatnot didn't happen. And it was ultimately made very, very uncomfortable for us,
Mm-hmm.
even though like it had nothing to do
Yep.
like the really juicy reasons why juicy, right? Reasons that someone would be like talked about, like the rumor is attached to we didn't even have any nugget of truth attached to it. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was just a non-thing. We were just people who were struggling to get our kids off to church every morning when we would go. And like we were the
Yep.
people that were there. We wanted to be there Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. And it's like, okay, we have a job commute and we have a church commute.
Mm-hmm. We had that church commute as well. I think our church was about 45 minutes away, longer before they put the freeway in. And there were definitely closer churches, but heaven help us if we even tried to go to one of those. Like, I don't think our parents would have ever considered going to a different church because of A, the rumor mill, and B, also, I guess, the community. They were like, no, 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 we have our commute, we have our spot. This, we know the drill. Let's stay
Yeah,
there.
no, yeah. All those are very real. I mean, yeah, the conversations that happened every single week and the inner turmoil that, like, I mean, losing sleep over something as simple as, hey, we think we might go somewhere else to church
Mm-hmm.
just because it's not easier. We might do that. Like, but all of the
What will
just,
people think?
yeah,
Yeah.
what will happen? We'll lose this. These people will write us off. This will,
Mm-hmm.
and we won't like it as much. We'll get there and we won't make, the relationships that we had here. Like, and all that stuff's very real concerns. Like, and, when you end up having constructed your entire life around that church and you say, okay, let's imagine a world where that's no longer there. Like it's like moving to another country. It's like you're starting over on everything, and that sounds scary too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And if you come back, I always like we never took time off going to church. Like even if you were sick, you pretty much forced yourself to go. Because if you missed one, that would get the rumor mill going as well. You miss 1 week and they're like, oh, they've backslidden.
Wow.
Oh, you look back and you're like, yikes, yikes, the pressure. It was just high pressure all the time, wasn't there?
Oh
To wear
yeah.
a mask and to fit in and to be a certain way.
Well, and the thing is like also, and you recognize this having the neurospicy proclivities that I do, like you're not terribly interested in surface level small talk anyway.
Yep.
And yet the whole game is that you never actually get to reveal what's really going on in your life. So
Mm-hmm.
for somebody who like is, hey, I want to go get deep into conversation with everybody and talk about deep things. Yeah, you can't talk about any of that stuff. You have to do the one thing that you hate to survive
Mm-hmm.
in this environment because, oh, how are you feeling? Great, blessed, everything's wonderful. No one's ever not blessed. No
Mm-hmm.
one's ever not, what was the cliche that people like to use? Doing better than I deserve. Like I'm a sinner, but yeah, that kind of junk. Like
I have like a body reaction to that.
there were literally like a dozen of those phrases that you could like you probably could have built a little divination system based on, the different responses that people would give to how are you? Um, because
Clever
they
idea. I
were
like that.
recycled over and over. Which one am I going to use right now to escape this conversation as quickly as possible?
Hmm. Yeah, the small talk is, and it was just so shallow. Everything was shallow. All of the connections, whilst so important, were still also so shallow that they just fell away the moment there was any form of strife, any form
Yeah,
of discomfort. They just fall to pieces.
I do remember a couple of instances where relationships did get more than surface level.
Hmm.
And when stuff would kind of come out, because, hey, we're talking about more serious stuff. We're actually delving into the shadows, if you will, in some of these conversations. Stuff comes out and like it got uncomfortable, but not that's not even the right word for it. Like just like when you really need to ground some energy, like you're just like this, and
Mm.
because we didn't know how to process that stuff because you kept it all so pushed down all the time that when you actually did go there, you didn't have the tools to deal with it. You weren't allowed to have the tools
Well, the
to
other
deal
thing as
with it.
well, a lot of the times, the only time I saw people being genuinely vulnerable and honest about their story and their struggles was up on a ginormous stage giving a testimony.
Oh yeah.
And that was
Uh,
applauded. That was like the thing you were supposed to do. Let me have the worst possible story to tell so that I can show how amazing God is in this redemption arc that I'm on.
yeah, it's the weirdest kink ever.
It
Like I
is a
don't
full-blown
I,
trauma dump, but such a weird concept. And I don't think people who haven't been in that really get how weird it is.
honestly, I haven't thought about that in quite some time. So having those memories come up just feels very icky.
Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like because I sat through so many of those, and of course, part of it's like, am I gonna have to give one of these one day?
Yep.
My story's not that enticing. My story's not that good. Are they gonna believe me? Like, or am I gonna need to do these people spice it up a little bit for shock?
Do
I'm
I need
sure
to
some of
develop an
them do.
alcohol addiction?
Like, yeah, like so, and even if none of that's true, the environment creates that. If that's your predilection to worry about that sort of thing,
Mm,
it's the perfect environment to trigger you.
yeah, 100%. So, because we haven't really covered it yet, we just dove straight in with a little bit of a prompt. That's a good deck to have some little prompts on conversation, actually.
Yeah,
How did you get here? Because you're now obviously very in a very different space. You're an ex-vangelical witch. Tell us a bit about your deconstruction journey and how you found yourself where you are now.
it's interesting because I feel like in some ways I'm a completely different person than I've ever been. But in other ways, I feel like I'm returning to something that I left a long time ago, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes any sense at all. Because like growing up, I grew up in Southern Baptist churches, but I don't recall, at least not my experience as a child, really getting the heaven, hell, salvation, whatever message to the point that it was internalized and became a part of my reality. I felt it was more like it was a myth or a fable, like all the other stories. And I just didn't really take it that seriously until high school. This was when the churches, it was very fashionable to have like the instead of a haunted house, you would have a hell house or something of that variety. I think we called ours judgment house or something like that.
We didn't have that here because we didn't have like Halloween or anything.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that at least my experience of the American evangelical church, one of the things that we do best is take a holiday that we believe is evil and turn it into something acceptable for us to enjoy.
Jesus ween.
Yeah, yeah. Trunk or treats and everything else. But this one was like basically they're taking people through different scenes in a drama of some sort. There's a story, usually it involves kids and like a prom night and drinking and a car accident and somebody dies and goes to hell. Right? So you are walking through various scenes in that story. And of course, at the end of the journey, the last stop before you get to see, white Jesus is you go into this room that they've filled with space heaters and Halloween music of like people moaning and screaming and all this stuff. And they're trying to basically, yeah, if you die like that, kid, this is this is a small taste of what it's going to be like for forever
Mm,
for you. They're trying to scare you into, and then you go see Jesus, and then you go through, a line of whatever it is to like hear your gospel presentation before you get to go out the door.
Classic case of phobia indoctrination right there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I worked Judgment House. I was actually one of the keepers of hell. Um, like I literally had a walkie-talkie and I was like carrying people through hell and it's like, okay, I'm ready for the next group. It's just like,
Yeah. Keepers of
I did
Hell. That is
that.
a great band name.
Yeah, yeah. It was enough to put like this seed in my mind of like, this is weird. Like the fact that we're doing this is weird. Like I didn't really get why
Mhm.
yet. I was like, there's something just not right. And I kind of got away from church for the most part until I got to college and I started dating who would become my first partner. And we were together for 18 years. You grow up, you get married, you go find a church. And so we did that thing, and we didn't end up in a place like I grew up in. We ended up in a place that, guys goes by names like Six Flags Over Jesus and Fort God, one of the more famous Southern Baptist churches in the U.S., Bellevue Baptist Church. And we were there for, I would say, well over a decade, except for the leaving churches story that happened midway, because we left and we went back. And yeah, that's a whole story in and of itself. But this was one of the places that what we now know as evangelicalism was kind of, incubated through the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s.
Mm.
Like I was getting there when they were peaking. 28,000 people, many of whom were showing up. They lit up these ginormous crosses at midnight on January 1st, 2000, to a rapture song. We don't know if Jesus is coming back or not, but let's get ready. We're like, where are we going to go? Well, we could go to that Bellevue place we saw on TV, right? Little did we know that that was going to like change my whole fucking life. And I don't know what it was that triggered it in me, but I went all in.
Mm.
Like I became as evangelical as you can get.
So how old were you at this little like turning point?
Yeah, this was like 22, 23,
Mm.
somewhere in there. The pastor of the church at the time was like a three-time Southern Baptist president. He was part of the so-called conservative resurgence where, they made it what it's become today. He was like the chair of the committee that rewrote the faith statement for the whole church in like 2000, I think, the Baptist Faith and Message. So like this was he was one of the celebrity pastors. He was one of the pastors who got to go talk to the Republican presidents all the time. Like
Mm.
he wasn't Billy Graham, but he wasn't far behind.
Mhm.
I kind of like got captivated by this guy because he was like a grandfather. He played that persona incredibly well. Whether it was him or not, I don't know, but he made me believe that he cared. But he preached the message that, ultimately, if you don't choose right, you're going to burn for all eternity. It doesn't matter how you dress it up.
Mm.
It's an incredibly violent story. And it's violence that it's like, oh, you're going to have to choose violence either way. You're either going to choose to give up your will or you're going to choose to give up your soul.
Mhm. Which is no real
Uh,
choice, really.
Not a choice. It's not a choice at all. It's a false choice. I guess evangelicalism became my hyperfixation. Like
Yep.
I was gonna study the Bible better than anybody else. I was gonna teach Sunday school. I had the gift of prophecy. I was gonna go street preach. I was gonna do all these things. I did do some of that. I not only did door-to-door evangelism, I trained people in door-to-door
Mm,
evangelism.
how lovely. What a great skill to
I could probably still teach it.
Yeah.
That's how well it was kind of drummed into us in that training. If I sat here and tried, I could probably take you through that whole presentation,
What
struggling a
was
little bit.
what was your opening line when they opened the door?
I don't recall what the exact opening line was, but like anything you said was intended to get you to two questions.
Mm-hmm.
They were called the diagnostic questions. And the first one was, do you know beyond any doubt that if you were to die today and stand before God that he would let you into heaven? Yes or no, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was supposed to like basically give you a sense of, does this person have any kind of a belief relationship whatsoever? And then the second one was, if God asks you why he should let you in, what would you say? And that was supposed to tell you what they're trusting in, right?
Mm.
And
So you could
so
pull
then
it
we had
apart.
the yeah, and then we had the list of like this is a works response, this is a faith response, this is a and so then you would kind of take that and it was almost like there was a little decision tree in your head that you could go this path or that path. But ultimately it didn't really matter what they said. You tried to find a way to give the gospel presentation anyway.
Mm.
A, just in case, and B, because you were training. And so
Mm-hmm.
you wanted your trainees to see a full presentation as often as you could.
Mm-hmm.
So these people that were going up and knocking on their doors, right, they don't realize this. They don't realize that not only are we there to like dump this on them, but oh, we're training people here. Like,
Mm.
you're a resource in our training program.
Yeah. Yeah.
We walked the malls until we got kicked out, and people would brag about how many presentations that they would get through at the mall. It's like,
Mm.
wait, hold on. We're breaking the rules. Isn't that sin to do but it's for the gospel. Like, wait,
Mm.
hold on. I didn't think Jesus said that we could sin for I'm confused. And this is another thing that it's like, I started deconstructing so long before I was even concerned about my faith
Mm-hmm.
being something that was in doubt.
But I think
Um,
just with the like getting kicked out of the malls, that would feed into the persecution complex. So that would almost be a good thing in a way.
well, yeah, I saw very quickly that, oh, when this is done to us, it's bad. But when we do it to others, it's okay
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because we are the chosen people, right? And you get into a lot of the, dispensational theology, like it gets even grosser than that. Yes, we're supposed to obey the law, except when it contradicts the gospel. We're commanded to share the gospel. So, therefore, if you have a choice between obeying the law and sharing the gospel, you share the gospel every time. And then, of course, I start trying to find holes in the system. And eventually you do ask some of those questions. It's like you're overthinking this, or just follow the script, just follow the plan, just you know what you're supposed to say when you're supposed to say it.
Did you ever get told, doubt your doubts, not your faith?
Oh God, yes. Every cliche in the book about that stuff. My favorite one was that Satan would never ask you to doubt your faith because then you would be thinking about your faith. Being like
Mm-hmm.
he's going to want you to ignore it. He's going to want you to just push it aside and not think about it. He's not going to get you to doubt. So if you're doubting, that's something coming from inside of you,
That's a you thing. That's a you problem.
right? Right? Like that you don't even need Satan for that. But then everybody's microwave breaking was Satan attacking them. That was the other thing that I never quite grasped was like we're talking about all this spiritual warfare, but spiritual warfare always seemed to be shit goes wrong. Like
Mm-hmm.
shit breaks, things happen. It's not always you're under attack, but we were taught that we're in a war. We're taught that we're on one side and so when things happen to us, of course that's a spiritual attack,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, the spiritual warfare stuff got very intense towards, I would say, the latter part of me still kind of clinging to, because I fought hard to hold on to church and to make it into something that made sense and make it into something that was rational and that I could be okay with. Because ultimately, okay, here we are years later, I found my way back to spirit. I found my way back to, a connection to something larger than myself. It's just not that gross system that was built to fill that need. It wasn't that I didn't have that need. And this kind of goes to a lot of the work that I want to do is that when you do have that ugly divorce with the church and you kind of push it away, you wash yourself of it like it's gone, you sit there and you're like, okay, who am I? Why am I here? Is there even like a purpose to anything? Like all the existential questions start to come up because everything that you had to answer those questions is gone now because
Mm.
it was handed to you and you were
Mhm.
told not to question it. You were told not to, you don't have the tools to figure it out even when you first, depending on how deep into the indoctrination you were, like it's devastating. And you think, okay, well, I can't not have that. What do I do?
Mhm.
For me, the answer to that was, put it all in the closet and pretend it's not there and just kind of be.
Yep.
Like I just kind of floated through life with, and I had a good time. Don't get me wrong. It was nice not being in that world anymore and feeling like, okay, I don't have to put this mask on every day. I don't have to face this judgment or the threat of this judgment all the time. But like, I didn't replace it with anything. Eventually, you run into those situations where you would have leaned on that support, you would have
Mm.
drawn on that power to kind of help you get through what you don't have it anymore. You're like, okay, I need something. I got divorced in 2019. This gets us up to 2023. My sister, one of her, I don't know how many of her near death situations were suicide attempts and how many were just overdose or like inadvertent. Like it's really hard to say. But there was a morning that my dad contacted me and told me that she was in the hospital and she tried to kill herself and all. And I broke because I didn't have anything to deal with that. And it's not like I wasn't close to my sister, but still, it's my family. It's like my only sibling. I broke. I didn't know what to do. I got myself into therapy. And therapy was absolutely needed to get me to the place where ultimately, when she did pass away earlier this year, I did have all the tools that I needed to deal with that because I'd healed from that other stuff and I'd learned how to like regulate myself better and things. But I also kind of started reaching back out to say, okay, I know that spirit, source, whatever we want to call it, is a thing. And I want to reconnect to that. And I'm going to find out. So the first thing I did was like, I wonder if there's like a church online for like people who are progressives that don't live in a place that's safe for progressive churches. So I kind of Google something that sounds suspiciously like that. And I found a place that meets on Zoom. It's called Harbor Online Community, something like that. We can get that in the notes. But that was my first foray, really, other than like I watched a friend's church on TV a few times during COVID because, yeah, there wasn't a real there for me, other than it was something to like keep you a little bit sane while you're in lockdown.
Mhm.
But this was a real like, I'm gonna like put myself out there and like try to figure what does this mean to me now. The cool thing about that experience was is like, okay, it's a church legally because it helps with certain things, but it looked nothing like what I experienced. Like there's everybody's mask is off all the time. We knew each other through Zoom meetings only for months. We get together last summer in New York. And we're all like, is it going to be weird? Is it going to be awkward? It wasn't. It was like the sweetest time with people that you felt like you'd known your whole life because all the stuff that you had built up all that time was really genuine. It was based on real talk and real feelings and real connection. And we were all like shocked
Mm.
because you think, okay, what was the experience you had before? It was the polar opposite, right? But ultimately, the what is Christianity was not the right box for me to remain in.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been curious. It's part of what got me into trouble, and it was probably also what drove me into apologetics because that allowed me to study all the other religions so that I could understand them to save people.
Yep.
I'm sure that was my, subconscious curiosity, just saying, oh, I'm gonna fix him. So go back to when I was like, I don't know, 12, 13 years old, whatever. The book True Magic by Amber Kay, I think. Very old book. There's a second edition of it, but even that's hard to get a hold of. Something was calling to me about that book. Like, because my cousin had bought it. And my cousin, he was my person that I played Dungeons and Dragons with the most. Like, we went into all those dark and taboo places. We listened to all the music you weren't supposed to listen to and nobody was watching. So he gave me his copy of that book one day. I don't know why.
Mm.
And I read it. And I was like, I don't know what it is, but this way of thinking is resonates with me. And I wanted to do it, but I was terrified.
Mm.
Like reading it now as a much older adult, a lot of the stuff that I remember being terrified of, it just doesn't seem scary at all. And I'm like thinking that's how much that indoctrination and how much that fear of like I thought like you would say like if you touched a tarot deck that a demon would pop out. Like I thought that if I did one of these rituals in this book that I was going to be like literally interfacing with demonic spirits
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't know any better. Like I didn't have all the sources on the I had this book. It's hard. It was hard to find books that were not mass market. Like the
Mm-hmm.
bookstores in our small town did not have the more esoteric stuff. I had a Bible that told me in theory based on the way I was taught to read it that all this stuff is evil and I had this other book saying it's not but I'm scared to death of it. And so ultimately, at some point, I put that up. I don't know why, I don't know when, but I put it up. So I tell the story on the Two Fools podcast of how I got into tarot. The first person that got me to actually go buy a tarot deck, I met through church. I met through Harbor. Again, like I didn't think a demon was going to pop out, but I felt dark and weird and dirty and like I'm doing something wrong and I don't want anybody to see me with this yet and I
Yep.
better make sure my kids don't notice that it's in the house. All that stuff was going through my head,
The
even though
conditioning
I
is strong.
don't believe any of that stuff anymore. And
Mm.
it took me a long time to like, that was 6 months before I started doing what I would say starting with tarot. And actually, when I decided to start doing daily pulls, and which, 3 months of daily pulls, well, you're either going to love tarot or you're going to hate it and never go near it again. I fell in love with it,
Mm.
but it took me a long time to get to where I was willing to start that. And it wasn't even a conscious process so much as just this inner resistance. Ultimately, it was doing tarot every day and then creating a space that it's like, okay, I'm going to build an altar. I don't even know how to build an altar, but I'm going to make a thing. Of course, now it's like one of my passions is building altars.
Mhm.
And so it's just like a notion of I'm going to create this space that is for me to connect to spirit. And I've got this practice that is for me to connect to spirit. And I think the thing that really made it work was like I was choosing this and I was choosing this and and I made a system on my own terms that I know ultimately I believe that we're all connecting to the same source. And I actually did what I thought was possible, which was I made my own way.
Mm.
And I found other people who were making their own way. And it's like most of the people that are doing what I do either call themselves witches or are in some adjacent place. And so eventually I just decided, I'm just going to embrace it. That's what this is. Why it's not like people don't think I'm weird anyway. So why don't I just go all in and be a witch? And so I remember the day that I first wrote that in something and actually published it. And I was like, huh, like while that was a big deal, it feels good. It feels right. It feels like, again, nobody's told me that I have to identify this way. I'm choosing to identify this way.
The word witch is so powerful, though. There's so much
Yeah.
power behind it, but there's also so much fear behind it when we've got that background as well.
It was interesting how fast I found myself protective of that word.
Mm.
Like when I see people demeaning witchcraft, like it gets a rise out of me. Like people, taking the Lord's name in vain used to get out a rise out of me before.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, because it represents to me that you're doing it your own way. You're connecting to a common thing, but you're doing it on your own terms. No one's coerced you. You are bringing consent to the equation. All the things that are broken and violent and abusive about the Christianity that I escaped. It's like this is the alternative path. Not many find it.
Yeah. Do you think now that you found this path? I know you call yourself Christian adjacent. Are you a Christian witch? Would you take that term, or would you call yourself something else?
I've had that internal conversation a number of times. And I think the word Christian is so damaged that I don't like putting it on witch. I
Mm-hmm.
don't judge anybody who does that. If you are comfortable identifying that way, great. And I don't really consider myself to be a part of Christianity, not in the sense that I would have understood before or even anything close to it. So I say adjacent because A, I like to say adjacent. It's just one of my pet terms, but it's like I'm not done with it.
Mm-hmm.
I still draw on it. Like the mystics, they would have never called themselves witches, but I think a lot of them were. I think Jesus was a witch.
Mm.
Like I take from that. I don't feel like I'm appropriating from that system because it appropriated me for a very long time. But I poach what I believe is real from that system
Mm.
and make it part of my own.
So do
Like
you use the Bible in your practice?
yeah, I use the Bible. I talk to the archangels every day. I do use scriptures as, spells essentially. I pray to the Morrigan with a rosary. My heritage is very European, and a lot of my deity practice is drawn from Irish paganism, but I'm very much a polyamorous polytheist, I guess, in that like I draw from so many different pantheons that mean something to me. Jesus still means something to me. Like I interact with Jesus like as another member of the pantheistic world, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's another expression of source. This was a way that the world was experienced and spoken to, right? Through
Mm-hmm.
that person just as much as many other figures that we talk about or mythological figures that embody those same archetypes, right? So when I look at it that way, as okay, I'm not doing Christianity, but I'm also not doing Christianity in that like I think the parts of that are real are just as real as the parts of witchcraft that are real or the parts of Buddhism that are real.
Mm.
And by real, I don't even necessarily know how to define that word, so real in the colloquial sense is the best I'm going to be able to define that.
True to you?
Yeah, true to me. For me, again, I picked this up from Kevin Garcia several months ago, which was this idea that capital T true is something that, it's up for philosophical debate,
Mm.
but it's not necessarily anything that's actually going to help you, right? Whether something's true or not. But if something's helpful, it's kind of hard. Is okay, does this give me peace? Does this help me feel grounded? Does this help me feel connected to source? If all those things are true, I don't really give a fuck if it's true.
Mm.
It's true for me. It works for me. I think I'm a better person by my judgment of what a good person is because I'm doing these things. And I know that when I was doing all these other things, all that stuff wasn't true for me. Like, I didn't have peace. I didn't feel secure. I rededicated my life to Jesus. I don't know how many times. I got saved,
Same.
multiple baptisms, all that shit. And I still never, when I believed in that system,
Mm.
the people say, "Oh yeah, I knew that if you put a gun to my head and said, deny Jesus or all, I would never, I would totally deny Jesus,
So would I. I used to hate that
one hundred
question.
percent."
And they said, if a gunman comes into church right now and said, if you believe in Jesus, stand up and then you're going to get shot. I was like, what idiot would stand up? Like, wouldn't Jesus want you to stay alive so you can spread the gospel to more people? You can't do that when you're dead. Like,
The number of fucking times that they trotted that story out to
oh my
get you to
God,
like
what was
be
it?
fired up about, and I'm like, no, I'm
Persecution
totally
complex.
denying Jesus every time. Totally denying Jesus. And I think if I didn't, when I get to heaven, Jesus will go, "What the fuck are you doing? I came that you could have life,
Yeah.
not get shot in the head," right? I never had that security,
do,
not once.
do you still feel like you're deconstructing some of the things that were so ingrained in you?
I think I'll be deconstructing for a very long time. I think there are multiple phases that people go through on that journey. I don't necessarily know what they are, but I think that, there's a very existential crisis sort of phase of deconstruction that's very can be just as traumatizing as the trauma that you left behind because you are like dealing with all these issues that you don't have the tools to eventually you get better a little bit, I think, like you heal. But that doesn't mean that you don't have tons of that stuff still buried in your shadows that you have to process. And it takes time to do that. And then each layer that you process, the next layer down seems to be a little bit less defined, a little bit less easy to put. Like when you first get out, the shit that's triggering you, like, okay, yeah, that needs to go, that needs to go, but then it gets harder.
Mm.
Then it gets
I
a
think
little more hidden.
if we look at something like the 5 stages of grief, I know at least for me, I mean, I was forced out of the church before I was ready. I was kicked out, which feels different to someone choosing to leave in a way. But at least for me, that first stage of grief, which is denial, was very much there because that's what I did. Total denial, pushed everything down, didn't want to deal with any of it, didn't address any of it, and
Yeah.
just kind of ignored it for a long time. And then next comes anger, and then I was very angry, angry at everyone. Everything felt so heated up. I couldn't see any good in the entire experience. Everything was angry. Everything was hot and heavy, and I was, I felt wronged, and I felt all of those sorts of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
what do they say? They say bargaining, depression, and acceptance. That's in the stages of grief. I think bargaining is probably more like on the deconstruction journey. That's where you start trying to figure out, what do I keep? What do I take? What was actually true for me? That's where you start pulling it apart,
Yeah,
deconstructing.
I think you're right.
You
I
know what I
think you're
mean?
right. No, this
That's
all this all tracks because I'm mapping it back to my experience and my story as you're saying it.
Yeah, I think the depression stage is probably more the, oh fuck, there's trauma here. Oh, I actually have to do something about that. I can't just understand it. I have to physically figure it out, as in,
And that's where
you
my
know what I mean?
sister's thing tipped me over into that.
Yes.
Like I
Yeah.
needed something to
You need help, you need
tip
guidance,
me
you need,
from that I'm going to sort through all this on my own to yeah,
mhm,
I need someone to take me through this and hold my hand and like give me the actual tools that I need to
tools.
deal with. It's not, you're not dealing with ideas anymore. You're dealing with
Yes.
emotions. You're dealing with
Yes.
stuff that's like deep in your
Deeper.
nervous system.
Correct. Correct. Yes. And then after that comes acceptance. So yeah, I think those 5 stages of grief are very relevant for the deconstruction journey as well.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I like
I
this
mean,
concept.
at least for our two data points, it seems to it seems to track perfectly.
I'm going to write a blog about this.
You should.
I'm adding a little note here: grief stages and deconstruction.
Yeah, I can't wait to read it.
I think that's actually a really interesting look at it. I also did in my brain ages ago. I was like, I should totally write a blog post on what was I going to do? The 12-step program and the fool's journey. I was going to look at the correlation between that. I had that like concept. I've never written that blog, but that's another one on my little. I have a blog list of things for like 100 long.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, I know right off, just hearing you say, I was like, yeah, that's going to be totally possible to write, and there's probably a couple dozen ways to do it. So I can't
Yeah.
wait to see what you do with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I went to that theology beer camp, change started coming very rapidly for me after that. Like in the aftermath of that event, like I was 2 months later in the society.
Mm-hmm.
Once I tipped over into that, it's like, okay, this piece goes here, this piece goes here, this piece goes here, this piece goes here. And I don't want to make it sound like it was easy because it wasn't. It was a journey. And what my practice looked like in January versus March versus May versus now, it's changed continually.
Mm.
But it's also just always like, okay, is this still serving me? Yes, okay, I'll keep doing it. Yeah.
You've done a lot in that time. I kept being very mindful to remind you to slow down because it was like, whoa, there's a lot of rapid stuff happening here very quickly. And you were like, I'm good, I'm good. And then you're like, and now we're slowing.
I feel like I've found the seasonality of it,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
if you will. I go through these cycles now like multiple times per month. Like
mm-hmm,
I'll have you and so many other people that like the moon is so prominent in my astrology.
mm-hmm,
And one of the first things about astrology that really just sucked me in was like tracking the phases of the moon. And it's like, oh, I feel this way. And oh, yeah, that just came up again. And oh, I feel. And now I can really start. Okay, I'm going to have. I just came out of a very productive burst. And then on clockwork, the moon goes into Aquarius and I crashed.
yep.
You could say I've reconditioned myself. Maybe that's what's happened. I don't know. I
Mm,
don't know how, but what I do know is that I feel like I have a much better understanding of how to use my energy at
mm.
different points in time. This is the time to work. This is a time to rest. This is a time to be really creative. This is a time to binge watch something.
This is like my favorite stuff about cyclical living and living in tune with the moon and the cycles, because that's one thing that Christianity as a spiritual, I don't know, spiritual life doesn't give. It doesn't give this, it's on all the time. You cannot rest. You have to always be on, because what if the rapture comes tomorrow and you are not perfect?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one of the big key differences in just the way you're allowed to live spiritually, if that makes sense.
But all the cyclical shits in the Old Testament, they just ignore it,
They do.
right?
Jewish calendar's a lunar calendar, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Why did we move away from that?
I don't know. You get the moon cycles every month and learning how that affects you uniquely. You're more cyclical than you know you are,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your body wants that and it wants it in a very specific way. And when you find that and you start living with it, it's like, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is sustainable.
Yes.
Like you have to have downtime. You have to
Mm-hmm.
have external time, internal time. You have to live both sides of the polarity in all these different because there's a natural resonance cycle to
Rhythm.
everything.
Mm.
You can either live with it or you can swim against it all the time, but it's just there.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple. It's not easy. There's only a few basic rules that seem to govern everything. They're just so freaking profound that, when you explain it to people, they're like, "What?" This is what I sounded like when I was a Christian, but I never did actually know that. I said I knew it to be true. I said I believed it. I said all those things, but did I really? No, I
Mm.
told you. Gun to my head, I'm denying Jesus every time because I don't think that I'm going to get what I'm promised in that book, supposedly. I don't
Mm.
think that.
Mm.
I really don't. But now I'm just, the way I believe things work now, are you scared of dying? No.
Yeah, I've lost my fear of death as well on this path, which it honestly used to be one of like top fear as a child, like 5 years old, terrified of dying because hell was a possibility and I never knew for sure that I wasn't going to hell. Oh, I got
Like if
baptized twice. Like
oh, I
once when I
did.
was
I got baptized
5.
twice as an adult.
Well, yeah, because just in case the first time didn't fully take, or just because in case I fucked it up since then, which is such a like I think I was 5 and then maybe 10 the second time. Like, what am I doing in those 5 years that constitutes needing to get baptized again? I'm a kid. Yet no one blinked an eye. They were like, "Oh, wonderful! This should be celebrated."
Did
Ugh,
you say one curse word? That's enough to send you to hell.
probably. I remember once I opened up the sealed section in a Dolly magazine, and it had this like two page or 4 page spread on Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and I knew I wasn't supposed to. I think I tried to like even glue it back on to be like, oh my god, I've opened this and I shouldn't have. That would have to me been enough to spiral me into thinking I was going to hell forever. I had just done some weird deal with the devil and I didn't even realize I'd done it, and I've sold my soul to him now. Oh my god, no.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, because we could not say oh my god, that was wrong.
Yeah. And then the thing is like when you stop and you think back on stuff like that, or at least I do, I can't find a way to get my brain in a state that would actually allow me to believe the things that I believed. Like
Now
I've lost enough of the neural wiring that
mm.
I can't accept the thought anymore.
Yeah. Well, because a
Uh,
lot of the reason that the thoughts were there, and you've taken my rapture class. Have you done the final lesson yet?
I haven't made it all the way to the end.
Okay, so you don't know this yet, so this is fun. In the final lesson, so there's 5 lessons, but there's 6 videos because one's a welcome video. In the final video, there is I talk about cult tactics and what we would have probably termed mind control or brainwashing, which they do not use that term anymore. It's called undue influence. But what I do is I cover all these different ways that the church puts undue influence on us, basically brainwashes us, and really wires our brain. It wires it to think and behave in a certain way. There's this method of cult techniques called the BITE model. It's by Stephen Hassan. And what it stands for, it's BITE. B for behavioral control, I for information control, T for thought control, and E for emotional control. If you have even just one of each of those, that's enough to really manipulate people. Behavioral control,
Yeah.
this falls into when the church, makes sure you are modifying your behavior to suit a certain way, aka, or we can't possibly move churches, even though it's going to be more convenient for us because that could be seen as bad. Or, I can't hang out with that person because they're not a Christian. So it dictates who you hang out with, where you hang out, what you do. We can't listen to that radio station because it's not allowed, right? That's behavior control. Then we have things like information control. Now, this is both like you can't listen to secular radio stations, you can't watch television, you can't watch those movies, you can't read those books, controlling the information that you take in. But it is also information controlling the information that you're delivered. So, this is what the Bible says, and this is what it means, even if that's not actually the truth. Them saying the
Yep.
rapture is real and it's happening anytime soon. Well, you know what? The rapture is not actually in the Bible. It's not there at all. It didn't exist before the 1800s. Like, that's not a thing. But they don't tell you that history. They don't tell you that origin story. They just tell you that the rapture's coming and it's in the Bible, and you better believe them because they're the authority on it. Then there is thought control. So this is that black and white thinking of sinners versus saved, us versus them, Christians
Yep.
versus not Christians, angels versus demons, heaven versus hell. It's very black and white thinking. And that is what they're training people to do. Because if you think in a black and white, there's no wiggle room. There is no room for gray area. You are either perfect or you are not. And if you're not perfect, you're going to hell. So it's that also then flows into how you're behaving, right? So it's behavior and thought control. And then there's the emotional control, which is things like what we've talked about with phobia indoctrination. And that is using fear to manipulate people into doing something. Fear of death, fear of eternal torment, fear of the tribulation, fear of getting it wrong, fear of, all sorts of things, and using that as control. But then there's also the flip side of reward aspect. And in a lot of high control religions, you get the positive affirmation of, you know, you get recognized for being a good Christian if you're coming all of the time, and that feels good. Or you have lots of people that are like, oh my gosh, it's so lovely to see you. I've missed you. This is amazing. That's positive affirmation for going to church all the time. You don't want to lose that. So that falls into emotional control as well. And there is a little mini version of lesson 5 of my rapture class
I
to
love it when you do
to
that.
wrap it up. A little info dump. Yeah, those little like neural pathways that you were talking about, that now those neural pathways have broken down, they've disintegrated. But when you're in
Yeah.
it and they're being rewired constantly, that neural plasticity of that constant going over and over in the same thing, of course it's going to be stronger there. Of course that's going to be controlling you then. And now that you've stepped away, it's not.
Yeah. No, that totally tracks. And I wonder, I wonder if some of that like healing wasn't already going on while I was going through that 5 year period of kind of like I've pushed everything. Like, yeah, I pushed all that down in my shadow, but there was a sense like how like you'll sedate someone or put them into a medically induced coma so that they can heal.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's almost like I was going through that state. I was like,
Mm.
I
Need that
can't
separation.
I can't actually heal and be conscious of this right now.
Yes. Yes.
I wonder if that's not part of what, because yeah, I remember like I don't remember the day that I decided to put all that away.
Mm.
I don't. Like it was just one day, it was just like it was not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then and things that were interesting to me were no longer interesting. It just kind of went away. But then I remember when it came back with a vengeance because it came back through a traumatic situation. I think there were definitely points earlier in the journey where if I had tried to deal with all that stuff, I would have completely just, disassociated from reality. It would not have been
Mm.
it would
Or
not
it,
have been a good outcome.
or it would have thrown you straight back into the church.
Yeah, I cannot find a path. I can't find a timeline when I
Mm.
think about it where that actually happens. But I know you're right
Mm.
because it
I've seen,
happens to so many people.
yeah, I've seen so many people, and I mean, we're going to see more of it with Saturn and Pisces, but so many people that they grow up with evangelical or Christian faith ideals drummed into them. They push back because of some reason or another, or they go off and explore, but they never do the work to deconstruct those beliefs and those fears that are buried deep down. They just push them down and they never go further than that. So then when something maybe traumatic or something else happens, it triggers those things to come back up, and they fall straight back into the church, renounce witchcraft or renounce rock music or whatever else they've been doing, right? We see like Kat Von
Yeah, I
D,
did a couple of those
and
actually.
they flip back.
Like I had never made it all the way out of the church when I was doing those like about
Mm,
faces, but like especially mine was tied so much to the breakdown of my marriage and that I thought that I could fix the marriage by fixing my Christianity
mhm. Oh yes,
because
because if you're right with God, you will be blessed.
right, that and like again, it was the only system I knew. We don't work because I'm not being Christ-like. I'm not doing my part of the umbrella in that stupid
It's
fucking
just
picture.
I was just
Yeah.
about to say the Bill Gothard umbrella. You're not the
Yeah,
big umbrella, so everything's going wrong.
right. It's like I couldn't unsee the stuff I had already seen to that point that when I tried to go back, even I couldn't make myself believe the lie anymore.
Hmm.
Not for lack of trying. Now that you bring this up, I'm like, yeah, I did go through a couple of those phases before, but it was like once the marriage was definitely going to die, all interest in reclaiming evangelicalism died with it. A lot of my security was tied up in the fact that, oh, well, I'm a good dad, I'm a good husband, I'm all these things, I'm a provider. And all that crumbling was almost like the equivalent fear of hell to me. Divorce and family, that stuff's not easy. I don't want to belittle, I don't want to make light of it.
It's not easy, but
It's
it's also
not.
not easy in the church.
Right.
That's why we got kicked out because my parents divorced.
but the hell that I was scared of didn't exist,
Mm,
is the main thing that I learned. There were a handful of words that
mm,
were not really okay. Divorce, we didn't talk about divorce.
mm,
Like that was not an option. Didn't matter how bad it got. I internalized all that shit.
mm,
It was very hard to be okay with letting go of that. But that was the piece where it was like, okay, I did that. I survived.
mhm,
Things are actually getting to be a lot better. What is left that tethers me to that? Nothing.
mm. Mine was kind of similar because I had the supernatural experience, paranormal experience that was terrifying, slipped back into my conditioning of the church of praying and my worship songs and all of this, and it didn't work. It just didn't work anymore. And that's when,
Mm.
for me, it was like, hang on a minute. And those threads started to fall away. And when the witchcraft thing did work, I was like, wait a minute, something's up here. And yeah, brain starts to seek answers where they haven't been found before.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the thing. Like the witchcraft stuff started working very quickly.
Mm,
It's so nonsensical, but yet you and I both know that we walked the earth for much of our life believing
mhm.
it was the thing.
100%. Yeah. And I don't think we're like, we are both clever people. It's nothing to do with IQ. And I think a lot of people don't understand that about cults in general and religion and spirituality. It has nothing to do with IQ. It
Yeah.
is, it's majority of it. They do say that a lot of people who get either taken in with cults, it's an emotional thing. It's fully
Yeah.
emotional rather than intellectual. And it's usually people who want to be good and people who want to be kind. And that's what gets taken advantage of, which is really sad. But then there's also the indoctrination from birth that definitely doesn't help. You know, how are you going to know
Right.
to believe anything else if that's all you've ever been told and shown?
Yeah, and that was, it's interesting that, I think my deconstruction started officially about the time that I went from being a, standard go drive to a corporate office every day employee to I became a consultant and I started traveling. And then I started traveling the world. And then I started meeting all
Affected.
these people that were supposed to be the enemy,
Yeah.
that we're supposed, and it's like, wait, all these people that are supposed to be like dying and going to hell are actually a lot nicer to me than the people who are like going to
Mm-hmm.
be hanging out with me for all eternity. And like all the stuff that Jesus says you're supposed to do, they actually do that shit. But Jesus, they're not even doing it because Jesus told them to. They're just nice. Like
Yep.
they're just kind. They're just love, and yeah, it was, that was part of the thing, was like, yeah, I grew up I spent most of my life until my early 30s pretty much within 100 miles of where I'm sitting right now.
Mm.
And again, a lot of that, there wasn't an internet. For much of my childhood, I had four channels. Like
Mm-hmm.
the access to information that tells another story other than the one that you're being fed constantly. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to Christian school, you're getting it 7 days a week.
Yep.
Not only is that difficult to overcome, even if you have alternative sources of information, but if you don't, if that's all you get fed, and this is part of
Possible.
what makes it very difficult for me to get mad at anybody who's caught up in this, because A, I was caught up in it, but B, I know why I was caught up in it. And I know that's the story that most of the people that, yeah, I don't want to hang out with you right now because of the things that you're going to say and do. But ultimately, I know for many of you, it's not your fucking fault.
Yeah. And when you were talking earlier about door to door, I know a lot of people, when they get someone coming to their door, whether they're Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, evangelical Christians, whoever they are, they'll slam the door in their face or they'll do something to scare them off. And unfortunately, that just proves their point that they've been told that the rest of the world is evil and wrong and horrible and sinful.
Oh,
And
yeah,
so,
we had a whole lesson on that. Like,
yeah.
oh, when you get rejected, that's a blessing.
So we
Like, yeah.
we like now what I do and what I teach people and what I try and help my husband to see is when people come to the door, I am just my genuine nice self. Like I don't take it personally that they're coming to my door. And especially with, I know with Mormons, they'll send their younger kids to be like, you know what, outside world is scary. We're the safety. We're the nice ones, right? So
Mm.
I try to show them something different. I be, you know, my normal lovely self as if it was anyone else. Treat them really kindly, and if I can talk to them, amazing, because maybe I can, maybe I can help them. Like I know this stuff. It's not offensive to me. So I think a lot of people are really rude, and I want to really ask folks out there to see it from the other side that these people are also victims and they're not doing this because they think they're high and mighty. They're doing this because they usually don't know better. And we can also help them by being kind.
I mean, I can't I can't really improve upon that other than to say that's exactly what my experience was.
Mm.
Like again, going back to that neuroplasticity thing, like I don't know how to get myself in the headspace where I loved going to do door-to-door evangelism.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it, but I did it. I mean,
Mm.
I've got the receipts, I've got the blog posts
Yeah.
archived of, me giving reports of witnessing to people and all this. And so like I know it happened and I wish it hadn't happened, but it did. And at the time, that was the natural path that I thought I was on. And it made sense to me. Now it doesn't make sense. I mean, now I have to think really hard. It's like, okay, why does this make sense? It makes sense because I was indoctrinated. It makes sense because I was,
But
unduly
undue
influenced.
influence. Yeah.
I had to think, what am I supposed to say instead of brainwashed? And
Mm.
and so, okay, well, it happened to me.
It can happen to anyone.
It can happen to anyone. And so therefore, like, what am I accomplishing by treating these people with hate or
Mm.
disdain or anything? Hey, it's not good to be that way, period, to anybody. But
Mhm.
but it's like you're not accomplishing anything. Like you are, if anything, to your point, reinforcing
Yes.
the indoctrination.
Yeah.
You
I
are making it worse.
I get a lot of Christians. I mean, I get a lot of hate from Christians, a lot, because I am very vocal about deconstructing and I'm very vocal about the really negative aspects of Christianity. I mean, it contributes to, we're watching it contribute to genocide, the evangelical funding of genocide and foreign policy in the United States. We see the horrible mistreatment of LGBTQIA plus community folks. It's like there are some really damaging, horrible aspects uh, in Christianity as a whole, and I'm very vocal about that. And I get a lot of, why can't you respect our beliefs? And I'm like, oh, no, no, no. You've misheard me. We can't respect when things like that are harming people, right? But I can
Right.
respect where you're coming from and I understand your journey and we can talk about it. And you don't have to do it this way. There are churches out there that are progressive. There are churches out there that aren't contributing to that pain aspect. But if you are, then you don't deserve my respect on those topics.
I couldn't agree more. And I know that I'm asking for it
Mm-hmm.
by having even this conversation.
Yeah.
I would say that when this one hits the internet, this would be the most vocal that I've been in a public space
Mm.
about these topics. So I'll get my protections reinforced because yeah, it's real. Like going back to the conversation earlier when I said I think Jesus is a witch. Well, I think prayers are spells,
Yeah,
and
100%. Spicy spells,
and
spicy prayers.
And so, like, yeah, hey, please don't pray for me. And because I don't want to have to fight it.
I really want that on a t-shirt. Please don't pray for me. I'm going to make a
We seem to supply you with infinite
t-shirt idea.
fodder for stickers and t-shirts.
Yes, in the Suburban Witches Society, we have a group chat. It's the most active chat I've ever been in ever, like consistently active chat, which I think is
I
great.
agree.
It's very
I
good.
agree.
And for a long time, we would, people would say something and we'd be like, ha ha ha, that should be on a t-shirt. Well, little did we know, Laura was keeping a diligent spreadsheet of all of the t-shirt ideas. And she dropped it on us one day and said, like, haha, look at all this. And I did. I took one which was a spell that you said about coffee, and I was like, I'm just gonna draw a little picture and make this into a sticker. And I did.
Yeah.
because I can and because it's fun and my creativity was bolstered by that little document. And I'm going to do more of them because they're fun.
Yeah, we have a lot of I get a lot of creative sparks from that group
Mm,
all the time. Like just and it might not even be directly related to something, but it's a very generative group. It's also a very good place for gallows humor and just if you gotta vent something, vent it there because we will find a way to make you laugh. Uh,
yeah, it's such a supportive group. I love it. We've been chatting for a while, so let's wrap it up. Let us, what do you say? Hold on, land the plane
oh my. Oh my.
on your Two Fools Walk into a Tower podcast. That is your let's land the plane.
We got off of that really quickly because of
Yeah.
that conversation. It was like, no, land the plane's not the right vibe for this. And it's like, I don't think I've ever said it again.
So, what is next on the cards for you, do you think, in this spiritual journey that you've been on? What is the next thing that you're going to be doing?
I think that what I'm figuring out right now is that I think I actually do have a purpose. And I feel like it is somehow tied to helping people go on this journey.
Hmm.
I've gotten interested in I went and did an astrology certification. I'm now studying Jungian life coaching.
You've done my psychic divination course.
I did your psychic dividend, and it's not like on paper it looks like a collection of a bunch of different things, but they're all so tightly integrated, even though that they've come from all these different directions, different teachers. But the thing that ties them together for me is they all connect back to some of these very basic ideas about how I believe the world works. It came to me very recently that I'm like, well, the person that you want to help is you in the past.
Hmm.
And I went back and I started going through old journal entries from like when I remember being at the beginning of this journey.
It's a good idea.
And I was shocked at how freaking lost I was
Mm,
and didn't feel like I had a purpose, didn't know who I was, didn't know who I was. I didn't, it was, and I just felt like I was kind of like, sitting in a lifeboat floating around in the middle of the ocean, not really having a sense of direction. Am I in trouble? What am I doing? I don't know. That is the person that I read
yeah.
talking to me. And I'm like, well, I'm here now. And I was there then. And I kind of know what it looked like. And I have all these tools that I used on that journey. Like,
Mm,
I don't just read tarot. I use tarot to take me through. Use tarot to learn about myself. I use tarot to do
100%.
the shadow work.
Yeah.
Like, I've used astrology to learn. Does everything in astrology resonate with me? No. The things
Mm,
that do resonate with me so strongly that whether it's true or not, it was helpful and it helped me to understand things about myself that I had no freaking clue. But once I did, I was able to, again, process some of those shadows or unlearn some of those things or no longer worry about and then
unmask.
yeah, unmask, like take those
Mm,
things off. And like, oh, well, I kind of pieced this together on my own and I met you and I met other and I'm like, okay, well, I've done all this synthesis, right? It seems stupid to just hold it and keep it for myself.
mm. Well, it's been beautiful watching your journey, but then also, I've challenged you a lot to go out and give readings to people and to go and do this and to push you a little bit in that way. And seeing how you've done that has been really wonderful because you are very good at it. And that's not something that I say lightly. You're very good at what you're doing and you've taken it and run with it. And I think that's the type of person that is primed for actually helping people and making this into something.
I was trying to find a place in this post Christianity world.
Mm,
It's like I'm here, but I don't want to just be not Christian anymore.
mhm,
Like I got out, I escaped. Great, good for me. I look around. There's people who are still there's people who have gotten out and don't know what to do.
mm,
There's people who have, okay, I'm kind of over the traumatic aspects of this, but that doesn't mean that I know how to reconnect with I don't know how to build a spiritual life because the only
Mhm.
spiritual life I know is triggering to me. So
Yes.
what do I
Yes.
do?
Hmm.
You go Google this shit, like you're gonna something not great's gonna happen if all you have is Google to help you find your way through.
Yeah.
Like I only feel like I've grown as much as I have because I had people like you, people like Tanape, people like Wendy, all these people that have contributed to my growth by giving me guidance, by
Mm.
answering my questions, and by being trusted, people that I can trust to give me that information as opposed to just like, oh, I read a random blog post or having a guide is a good thing.
Hmm.
Having a mentor is a good thing.
I
Like,
wholly agree. I had a mentor. I still have a mentor. I think that's a really important part of growing in your spirituality. And sometimes you need that outside, unbiased opinion to help guide you as well, because we can be biased about ourselves.
yeah, 100%.
Well, I think I'm very excited to see where you go. I'm excited for Falcon's Mage to really take off, and hopefully this
Yeah.
helps get out there as well, guys. Matt is amazing.
Well, thank you. This has
Absolutely.
been fun.
Where can people find you online?
On all the socials, I think I've finally gotten it to where Falcon's Mage is the thing that
Hmm.
shows up everywhere. Website wise, so Falcon's Mage lives at Falcon's Labyrinth. So falconslabyrinth.com is where I have my tarot reading. I'm also kind of creating this notion of it's not necessarily just deconstruction coaching, but that's a thing that people I think are starting to understand as something that exists.
Hmm.
It's that, but it's to me, it's more not so much helping you with the deconstruction as it is helping you with the reconstruction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and there's a lot of people who will help you with that disorder stage.
Mm.
I don't know that I can really add to that as well, but I'm really passionate about the reorder stage.
I love that.
Hey, you spend 3 months with me, you're not done,
Hmm.
but you're a lot further along than you would have been had you been flailing about by yourself. You spend 6 months working with me. Well, I know how much change I've gone through in 6 months. So I know you can do a lot in six
Mm.
months if you actually want to. And you want to, if you want to do the work, that's the thing is it's work.
Yeah.
All of this is work. We're happy because we've done the work.
I
But
100%
like,
agree on the work as well. As you know, I like to give a lot of homework to my mentor
yeah,
clients.
so all of that is there, and your homework's great because you asked me to watch things on Disney.
Have you watched Moon Knight yet?
I did watch Moon Knight. Moon Knight was fabulous.
Yes.
It
Yes.
was
Told you.
fabulous.
Told you.
I had so much fun with that one. So, and then the other two places, my newsletters and podcast and all that situation is on Substack. So, Contemplating Resonance is kind of my personal space that kind of started as this nonsensical memoir, but has kind of it's grown into me talking about this kind of stuff that we're talking about now. And that's kind of the platform for that. And then, Brandy, and I think more people are going to get to know Brandy in the coming months as well,
Mhm.
because she's also an incredibly talented reader.
Mhm.
We were just back channeling about tarot all the time. I said, do you want to start a podcast about tarot? Because
Mhm.
I think it's not going to be that much work. Like, we're just going to do what we already do. We're just going to record it.
Mm.
And it's not that far from the truth, as it turns out. So that podcast has taken off even faster than I expected it to.
Mm.
And so many people have been so kind to not only listen, but like
Mm.
send it to 10 people. That's the thing I want to kind of end on for people to hear is that, yeah, all these are my websites. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But why are these things growing? Because this is the most like reciprocity vibe community that I've ever been a part of.
Everyone
I
supports
mean,
everyone.
we in theory we're all playing capitalism doing this.
Mm.
And in theory, on paper, we're all competitors, but we don't compete.
No.
Oh, at least the people that I met.
Collaborate.
Yeah, the people that I know and trust, like we're all helping each other and
Mhm.
we are tearing down the narrative of the zero sum game.
Mm.
How am I going to be an anti-capitalist? I'm going to go be I'm going to go be a professional witch and tarot reader. That's what I'm
Yes,
going to do because
100%.
that's where everybody's tearing down capitalism while they play it. I love it.
Love that. So, everyone, definitely go and check it out. I will put all of those links in the description box for this episode. So, if you want some help rebuilding your spiritual practice, if you want to figure out a little bit more about who you are, definitely check out what Matt is offering because I can attest that Matt has put in the work and it is really good stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much for joining me today, Matt. It has been a pleasure.
Yeah, to twist my arm, like I will hang out and talk with you anytime you like. This is fantastic fun.
Wonderful. And we hope you've all had a lovely time as well listening to us talk about everything. And we will chat with you all next time. That was such a great episode. We covered so much ground. So much ground. As I'm sure you're aware, I do have my Rapture class out at the moment. It is called Ridiculous Rapture Rhetoric. It is the biggest deep dive into the eschatological viewpoints of the evangelical church. Eschatological just means like end times ideas and concepts, along with the rapture doctrine and where that originates, that I've seen anywhere. Like I couldn't find all of this in one place, so I created it for you guys to help you deconstruct from that fear, deconstruct from those ideas, and to understand more about how the Bible's actually written, to understand more about the context and the way in which you're supposed to interpret the Bible, to understand the cult tactics that go into why we fall for this bullshit. So, highly recommend my class that I made because it's good, and that's why I recommend it. If you do have a financial barrier to accessing that class, though, please reach out. I do have 5 of them available, free of charge, no questions asked, to those folks who really need that healing. Next week, I will be answering a listener question about the difference between charms, spells, and incantations. So definitely stay tuned for that one. If you have a question for the podcast, email me info@suburbanwitchery.com. And I'll chat with you next time.